lost and alone in the open ocean. No help coming. No land in sight. Strength, stamina failing, clawing at the surface. Desperate for every breath that could be your last. What could be worse than this hell? What could be worse? That could be worse.
Fear of the ocean, fear of the deep waters, fear of what lurks beneath. It's instinctual, it's base, it is hardwired into every single creature of the land. We're not built for it, we're not designed for it. It's an alien world, which does not take kindly to those that don't belong. A cutthroat abyss where only the ruthless survive. Yet despite all that, it holds a beauty. It holds a fascination, a mystery yearning you to explore, to solve, to delve and dive deep and witness the wonders that lay beneath the currents. And playing on that eclectic mix of fear and fascination is so very effective. And that is why underwater combat, underwater hunting should not be forgotten. And not only should it not be forgotten, it should return, better, reimagined, re-envisioned, and glorious. The idea of being in a dark ocean, lights start flickering in the distance, and a Namiel swoops by in a torrent of bubbles and electricity. It is heart palpitating, but it is exhilarating. So today, what I want to do is go over at least my current idea for how I think underwater combat could exist, could give the experience that nothing else can quite match, because simply it's underwater without it being kind of how it was a lot of the time in the 3rd gen, which was
I wanna die. I don't want to live anymore.
But hey, one cannot deny that it was a really cool idea and a creative direction to try. Putting you under the waves in such an uncomfortable situation and still have you come out on top against ferocious creatures that call the deep their home. By no means should any hunter be able to survive in the home turf of something even like a Lagiacrus, with their increased speed, mobility all around you, as you desperately try and fight the force of the water pressing against you. But we did, and it had its moments. Chills every time! Oh, what a theme, what a creature, what a whale, what a beard! And I want to kind of try and come up with a solution that gives you the best of both worlds. The ability to face something underwater, where it is at home, where it is most dangerous, and experience mechanics, attacks, and abilities both from you and the monster that you simply cannot actually get from air and land. From a most basic level, a monster grabbing you on seafloor, jetting up to the surface of the water, freezing it with ice element, having a little bit of a land island battle it's just created that slowly melts from the outside in before you drop back into the sea and sink for Abyss round 2. I mean, that's very basic, but it's really fun and something you can't create anywhere else, at least not without a lot of extra convolutedness. But also the ability to face it in a way that doesn't feel like wading through treacle. As to me, if I had to really put it in a sentence, everything about being underwater with a monster is absolutely incredible, except actually fighting it with underwater controls and movement. So you want to kind of figure out a way to create that magical underwater experience, the sights you can do, the mechanics you can then employ, the world you can create, which is something that you just cannot get on land unless you go, fuck it, let's just make a mountain that's also a coral reef. Thank you, Coral Highlands. But still, you can do so much more actually underwater. Think about the various water landscapes that exist. There is some absolutely breathtaking stuff that would translate wonderfully to a Monster Hunter environment and to a Monster Hunter hunt. We just need to be able to interact with it in a way that isn't kind of clunky, slow swimming that just doesn't feel too great. So what I have kind of realized is that I think Rise is the ultimate solution. Imagine the mobility in Rise, the wirebugs, being able to go, well, anywhere in any direction really quickly at a moment's notice. Translate that underwater. This is something that's come up before, but the idea of being able to do a sudden, jet in a direction to really kind of help with the otherwise crippling mobility problems is really good. But where I'm going to go with this underwater combat, where I'm going to go with this little talk, is actually no swimming involved. At least not generally, and at least not normally. A few moves and a few weapons might have a few moments of swimming. And I say swimming like swimming, because in my system here, swimming would be akin to flying. And you might be like, what are you talking? What? Well, let me lay the scene. You see what I'm going for here? So take the Coral Highlands as an example. Put it underwater. Not me, the bloody, just the map. So the Coral Highlands is underwater, but look, we're still walking around on the ground, air quotes, the sea floor, the sea bed. We have an ability to breathe, breathing apparatus. That could be the mantle slot of this game. It could be the petal ace, the extra unique bit of equipment that you could upgrade and do something with. Your breathing apparatus, it could come with bonus effects, like you have to inhale a quick bit of healing breath or a quick bit of stamina on a very basic level, but you have an equipment slot that's extra in this deep sea Monster Hunter experience that is how you breathe. You're anchored to the floor in your normal state so that the controls of the game, despite being underwater, are controlled as if you're on land. And ta-da! You get the experience of being underwater, facing leviathans where they are the most impressive. And it would turn leviathans into essentially flying monsters, because you'd be anchored to the sea floor, they'd be swimming above you, occasionally swimming to the floor with you, and then darting back up and going all around, so you'd experience a, air quotes, flying monster, but it's swimming, and because it's swimming, it can have movements and patterns that something with wings simply can't do, because that's not how wings and aerial mobility works, whereas a darting fish swimmy-like movements, but above you as you're on the sea floor, would be really cool to see and an entirely new way of interacting. Then you could have other deep sea monsters on the seabed with you that stay on it for normal underwater, air quotes, land fights, but you're underwater with land controls. Now don't get me wrong, this deep sea Monster Hunter would obviously still have land hunts, land maps, etc. for variety, much like all 3rd gen wasn't just underwater. But you also, while underwater, yes, it is land-like controls because you're anchored to the sea floor and you're not moving in 3D space, you are moving as if it is on land, but your stuff would still be affected by the fact you are surrounded by and underwater. You could have little jets of movement, you could have attacks that do send you up into the water. You can swim for a bit, hover as it were, and then float back down with your heavy boots, or however you do it, to the sea floor. Insect Glaive wouldn't be jumping in the air and flying, it would be surging up and swimming for a little bit with jets of bubbly air. And you see, this is where the wirebug system in Rise comes in, and what really made this click for me. If you're anchored to the sea floor, but you have a friendly sea creature akin to a wirebug that can give you these bursts of mobility even through the sea, because yes, even though you're stuck on the sea floor, anchored to it, you're still going to be moving a little bit sluggishly because you're, in water, but we solve that with a bursty movement system that is Rise, and it also balances the ridiculous movement in Rise, because when you're not using your wirebuggy type movement, you would be slower than you are on land, so you have to time it and care about that wirebug movement a lot more. It's not there as extra, it's your main way to get around that isn't trudging through the ocean, and I think that would be really, really badass. Essentially, we create a way to explore really cool deep sea environments, fight really cool deep sea monsters in a system that feels fun and fast-paced and not weird and sluggish, that lets you use cool underwater-based moves, but lets you also fight as if you're on land, which, let's be honest, has always been the most fun way to interact, just with a little watery twist, letting you have swimming enemies act as flying enemies from your perspective, but do so in a way that is unique to swimming. You could have entire new classifications of monsters that could only exist in water because of this system, and that's the main exciting thing, actually bringing in whole new types of creature that are just underwater, because of course a lot of Leviathans can come on land so we can still fight them, but if you have this system, which is essentially, hey, it's normal Monster Hunter as we know and love it, but technically you're underwater, you can then do those things that, require you to be technically underwater. I feel like it might be a cop-out, but I do believe that the best way to do underwater combat is to make it land combat, but also now you can be underwater and get the monsters, environments, and mechanics that would come with that in a really positive way. You can have new moves on all the weapons based on the fact you're underwater that join your arsenal, and that's how it works that way. You can have new equipment slots, like I said with the Breather, from being underwater, but again, at its core level, it will feel like normal land-based combat that we know and love, with an injection of mobility from Rise, with the smoothness of World and Iceborne, but technically speaking, hey-oh, you're under the sea, and therefore can enjoy everything new and exciting and unique that comes with that. The best of both worlds. I don't think you need to be literally swimming with your hunter to have a wonderful, unique, terrifying, and beautiful underwater hunting experience.
Moisture is the essence of wetness.
So, hey, you could even have a Palico replacement that's a more aquatic creature, though I don't think they ever would, because people love the Palicos, but that's another story altogether. But yeah, that's my idea. Essentially a way for, well, for us to have our cake and eat it too, and I, for one, would totally be for this. You could even have an entire hub, an entire town under water. It could be situated in like a water cave that you swim up into, and it gets trade from the surface via transport using this kind of weighted method that the hunters use a mini version of to walk on the sea floor, and it really would be a world apart. I think a really cool direction for Monster Hunter now would be to either go super high up or super down below in a sustainable, non-gimmicky way from the get-go. But that's just my thoughts. What do you guys think? I would love to know. Would it be kind of pointless being underwater if you're not air quotes swimming? Or does this kind of way of getting to experience that side of things without a major shift in how you actually physically interact with a hunt control-wise a good little notion? For now though, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe for more. Please consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below. And until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.